All right, we're here with Joe Nichols. Really exciting. Great to meet you. Wes and I
Too,
both
bro.
grew up listening to your music. Say that in a good, you're not that much older than us, but what are you, 45? We're 33
Yeah,
or so. So right in that
right.
heyday of getting my driver's license ish, the
Yep.
burnt
Yep.
CDs, you'd have a little Broken Heartsville, a little she only smokes when she drinks on it.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
I wanted to start by asking about that. How does it feel like 20 years later or more even to still have songs like that when it comes on, people don't skip it, people sing along no matter where you're playing it. If it comes on the radio, you get excited because you haven't heard it in so long. Got to feel good, right, to have songs like that that kind of withstand the test of time.
It feels great. I tell you, back when we were making Man with the Memory, that album, and try to do this with every album since, we wanted to make something that was timeless, and at the time, and many times since, the popular thing is to go with whatever the hot sound is, whether that's, something that's really pop at the moment or bro country or whatever it is. That's always kind of the temptation from, producers or execs or whoever, and radio, to kind of play or push things toward whatever's hot at the moment. But at that time, and like I said, ever since, we always wanted to make a timeless kind of record. And when I hear that album, I think, man, I know it seemed crazy at the time because people were, wanting millions of sales, but we made a timeless record, I think. And I feel better about that than anything I've ever done, that some of that music still holds up today.
What is the pressure like to conform to like whatever the trend is right now? Because I feel like there was a moment in like 2013, 14, 15 where there was a pretty dynamic shift towards what became really popular. And I imagine it's like really hard to like, maybe we could try a little something like that. Maybe we could push it further and further. And you have such a traditional sounding voice that it's kind of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, this is really selling. I imagine there's like a lot of pressure to kind of change things up a little.
There is, and I've heard, boy, how do I say this politically? Okay.
No, just say it.
Yeah, I think there's always pressure one way or another from the label or from radio to do something that doesn't stick out too much on radio. So if Taylor Swift, for example, is the hot thing right now, what does your record sound like next to hers on the radio? And if it's way far out there, traditional country, they just won't play it. And I understand to a degree, their reasoning behind that, because if you're driven by numbers and the numbers are good, you kind of don't want to poke your audience in the eye with something that may catch their ear wrong. So, we put out songs like Billy Graham's Bible, Never Gets Old, and they don't get played near as much because of that sometimes. And I've heard comments from programmers, this song sounds 1,000 years old, so we're going to go play this next to, something like an Eric Church or something like that, where it sounds, very, very modern. I've run into that the last 20 years, since I put the very first record out. On the very first album, Man with the Memory, we left, two or three singles I felt like were great single choices on that record, because I remember the comment was that country radio was not ready for something that country. And I remember that stuck with me for a long time. Like, man, I don't know that we should have given into that kind of pressure. We probably should have been a little more bold and just did it anyway. But like I said, it's kind of over the years been a little bit of a double-edged sword where, boldness gets you, sometimes can be very rewarding and sometimes it can bury you a little bit. So we've tried to do as much as we can, as bold as we can. And, the other thing I was going to say about that is we're able to do something with a modern shine on it, like Sunny in 75. And I think that the saving grace, or for better lack of words, the limitation of my voice is that it's that it's traditional country. That's kind of just the way I sing. So no matter how shiny the track is, it's going to kind of lend itself a little more to the country, traditional country sound because of my voice a little. So, we've pushed it a little, a couple of times, just trying to, like I said, have a modern sheen on the record that wouldn't, cause too much of a knee-jerk reaction from radio.
Modern
But at the
sheen,
same
I like
time,
that.
it's like I said, it's kind of one of those things that you just have to balance all the time. Try to be as courageous as you can, under the the circumstances.
Well, you mentioned a guy like Eric Church, who I think the tides are turning, where a guy like that kind of is authentic in the way, like, it's different, and like, it's not offensively bad pop country. It's its own thing. We had Cody Johnson on, and it made me think of a quote after what you just said. He said he didn't get a song played because it was too rodeo for radio. Some program director said that. And for us, like, we've had the trends, right, where we talk about burnt CDs. Like, I had Nelly and Alan Jackson and Brooks and Dunn and Joe Nichols and all these people on my burnt CD. As time went on, and I hit my like early 30s, I just started appreciating the older stuff so much more than I did when I was like 21. Yeah. So when I hear like comments like that, I get like frustrated. A radio now is almost, not that it doesn't matter, but you can kind of build a career off of, right, just streaming and doing all that stuff. Has that been, for a guy like yourself who's been around a long time, have you enjoyed that, the added avenues you can kind of go down to kind of keep things the way you want to keep them?
Absolutely. And I tell you what, it's the overall big picture, the quote unquote brand that people in the business like to call it. That's been a saving grace for me, because I will take these big chunks of time off of radio. Like I said, after putting out Sunday in 75 and and Hard to Be Cool, we went with Never Gets Old and Billy Graham's Bible. And I think where radio didn't play those songs, it went back to the brand. Like, man, I'm a traditional country guy, and this may not be played on the radio, but I think in the bigger picture, people will appreciate this is who I am. And to your point, I think that is a little bit better nowadays, that radio still drives everything. Radio still moves all your other business, radio still. And I'm thankful for them for all they've done over the 20 years. Trust me, they've been a big, huge part of my career. But I do appreciate that, you have streaming, you have YouTube, you have, live stuff. You can put something on Facebook or any number of ways that you can get something seen and heard without having to have a current single that's working at radio. I do appreciate that very much.
Nice.
Did you ever feel like there was a moment where you were like, maybe you shouldn't have put that out or cut that? Was there like maybe like a regret or something where you were like, maybe I played the game a little too much? Because are you
talking about Baby Got Back, Wes?
I actually wasn't, but that one comes to, but that kind of goes back to your voice though. That sounded country as shit.
It's country as hell.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I thought that was a funny moment, and I think it lasted about 5 minutes, and then I realized people can have some pretty harsh opinions on that, and I kind of agree with a lot of the criticism Baby Kept Back, because it wasn't meant to go further than one show, really. Yeah. And then then my manager was like, why don't we go in and record this? I'm like, well, because it'll be on record forever. We'll have to live with that. And we did it. It was kind of like one of those, we had a little extra time, a little extra money for that album, so we did it. And then we wanted, my manager said, let's make a video for this. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if we can withstand the beating that might come from that. And he's like, well, I think we get Sir Mix-a-Lot in the video. I think it might be really cool. I'm like, all right, well, if we can do it with Sir Mix-a-Lot, that'd be cool. And so he did the video.
Your wife's like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Oh my God. I was like, this is going to last way longer than 5 minutes. This is going to be something that people are going to give me hell about. And they did, man. I saw some comments and I'm like, well, I can't disagree with that. I saw some guy post on there, this is what's wrong with country music. I'm like, well, I don't know if this is what's wrong with country music, but I get your disdain at this. But you know, that I've had a few singles along the way that I thought probably could have been better. You know, I think we overthought a song called Believers. I don't know if y'all remember that one. That was one that didn't really work well at radio, but I think we were all trying to recapture the impossible a little bit. And you know, this was right before we put Give Me That Girl out. I think we all thought Give Me That Girl was a better single, but maybe it would be better as a second single after something like The Impossible, a big meaningful message. And I just think at that time, the world didn't agree with that song being a hit. And I look back at it and I'm like, that wasn't a very special performance vocally. And song is good, but I'm not sure that people had the attention span or the buy-in like they did with like The Impossible being a timely kind of song.
Yeah. And right now you have the new EP, which is also the name of the album, Good Day for Living. When does the album come out again? The full album?
Full album comes out tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. There you go. And then, but the EP's been out for a while. You have, I think, 4 songs on it.
Right.
You're on the porch right now on the screen, and made me think of the Screen Dead song. You got some catchy stuff on there. And how do you go about for an EP like that, picking the songs? You want to give it like is it your favorite 4? Is it a taste? Is it like, I want some catchy, some slow to get the kind of fans excited?
I think, you know, I really don't know the formula that everybody kind of agrees on as far as releasing that waterfall singles. I think we wanted to show some accents of the record. Have you guys got the whole album yet?
Yeah.
I think they want to show some kind of, you know, potential radio song, but not give it all away at one time. I think the single choices are the ones that are still left without being released on the EP. I wish I had a better answer for you on
you got Blake Shelton on the full album. You held that one back. You got Blake Shelton. How did that come about? You guys are buddies, right?
Yeah, I was on Giant Records with him. We were on Giant Records together in 99 and 2000 and 2001, a little bit of 2001 maybe. We like to call it the Artist Protection Program. He was in the kind of the same boat I was in. We were signed a long time ago. We were kind of starving artists, couldn't get the label to kind of do it our way. And when Giant folded into Warner Brothers decided to carry me, Blake, and somebody else. I think it was Neil McCoy. And they, of course, had a song out on Blake already called Austin, and kind of he took off from there. But we've maintained, you know, friendship for 20, 22, 23 years now. And I got this song called Friends That Do, and it came out of the studio really cool. We kind of had a duet in mind anyway. I called him one day and said, man, I got this song. I think it feels like a single. I've already sung my part. And I said, but it feels like a duet. If you want to take a listen to it, let me know if you're interested. And he said, yeah, send it over. I sent it to him and he said, I'm in, man. Let me get a vocal on this thing. And he did it. I think he did that vocal like 7-10 days later or something like that in LA. But yeah, he's cool about it, man. We've always talked about doing something together for 20 years. You know, we just haven't had the right opportunity, the right timing for both of us.
You give him shit for like LA, Mr. Hollywood, Mr. TV,
buying that mansion in the hills, and
I don't give him shit because I think he'll give it way worse. I think he has these. It seems like he has these put downs that cut you deeper than the normal, just jabbing you a little bit, like very like extremely accurate. He's just I don't know. I don't poke the bear very much. Like I said, he can kind of be, he can be more witty than I can.
Yeah, he's pretty funny.
With comebacks.
When you're trying to send a duet like that, possibly to country radio, is there ever a problem with like, well, maybe Blake has another duet single. Oh, we can't do it right now. Or maybe Blake has something like that. Oh, we can't do it now. Is that ever an issue? I imagine it is.
Yeah. All that stuff is, kind of, labels like to make sure everything is mapped out as far out as they can map it. And radio takes a little while to, nowadays to kind of get everything moving up the chart. And so, yeah, I think there was kind of like going into it knowing that this is not going to probably see radio for a while. if we can get on the schedule, that'd be great. But I've had that's kind of not a new thing. I had a duet with Randy Travis called "Tonight I'm Playing Possum" that Randy wanted to put out, and I wanted him to put it out so bad. It was a very country song. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but it's about George Jones, and really, really cool song. And my label they were like, "Look, we're running 75, Sunny 75 up the chart, and we just can't afford to have a potential clash with radio playing this or Sunny and 75. And so we have to wait until the single's done." And I felt bad about that since then. That was right before Randy got real sick. And another thing I did with Lucy Hale, which was not a very country song, kind of more of a pop song called "Red Dress." And I think her label Disney wanted to put that out, and we were kind of working another song at radio, and it just kind of doesn't work out right most of the time. So I'm hoping that this one actually does find radio at some point.
Speaking of what radio will play, I'm pretty confident in saying there's no chance in hell you could get away with singing a song like "She Only Smokes When She Drinks" today with the way the world is. I love that song, by the way, but like, I mean,
thank you, man.
Has anybody ever put pantyhose and Bon Jovi in a sentence in a song? Come on. But
yeah,
but it's still to this day, everybody sings along. Everybody gets excited if it's a lake day, a summer day, you're outside drinking or grilling or whatever. I think you have over 100 million streams on it on Spotify. Do you think about that, like how it's changed in terms of culturally? Like if you sang that song today, people be like, "Oh my God," like they'd be clutching their pearls, and people just can't have a laugh now how they could maybe back then.
Do people go to the Holiday Inn to drink margaritas anymore either?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen worse places, I reckon. Man, I got to tell you, that was 2005, I think. We did Tequila, and even then, the label had a few people there, a few of the female employees that had a problem with putting out Tequila. Makes it close. They found it pretty offensive, and they thought that country music might be pretty offended. The female audience of country music might be pretty offended, and that was a long time ago. Like I said, it was 2005-ish. And of course, I think they just wanted to caution me, like, "Hey, you might get some pushback on this. We feel like this, but we'll put it out if you really want to." And I was very adamant that this has got to be the first single off this record. I think it's a big old hit.
Good job.
And they eventually did. But like I said, the caution was noted, by everybody at the label that, this might be offensive. Let's keep our eyes out.
You think that's something that over time you've had to be like a little more careful about, like now in 2022, like it's like, well, that's not going to work these days. That might've worked 15 years ago, but now we got to probably push towards something a little, maybe safer is the word, or more, I don't want to say PC, but
I think I really admire guys. You mentioned Eric Church. We talked about Eric Church a little bit. I really admire guys like that, where he seems to be able to say a lot of things that are really, really close, to being not offensive, but kind of just push the edge a little bit with maybe pissing somebody off. And I don't know that we all kind of play by that rule. I think a lot of people in an effort to kind of be go along, get along, kind of make this as easy for radio as possible to play this song. Don't give a chance to say, well, if you hadn't have said "damn it" so much in the song, or if you hadn't have said this or talked about this, we'd probably play it. I think people try to, give something that's as passive as possible, and like I said, I admire guys like Eric Church and some of the other guys that don't really necessarily do that. And over the years, I think the high risk, high reward has been pretty true on that kind of stuff. It really can pay off when you kind of speak for the people, and it's a little offensive, a little abrasive. But like I said, if you swing and miss, man, it's a mighty Casey striking out. It's kind of swing and a miss. Fall on your face.
Right.
I'm trying to think back to kind of in the early 2000s. You mentioned 2005. Who were kind of, obviously I know like Kenny Chesney, Tim McGraw, those guys were big, but was that like, you had like a Chris Cagle was big back then, like bless his heart, he's not dead, but he just quit making music. But like, who
Hung it
else were
up.
some of the big guys, like big acts? Was like Lone Star big right then, or
Rascal Flats was probably
Rascal
huge.
Flats. Yeah, they were
It's
really
funny to
big.
see the
Big Al.
yeah, of course, AJ.
Yeah, Alan.
Do you ever?
Yeah, Toby. Toby was a
Toby,
pretty
yeah.
big deal. Brooks and Dunn was still riding
I
pretty
mean, you got to
high.
feel good about that, right? Like where you're still out there, you're still like touring, you're making music, you're having this album is great. You're still going, like it still feels fresh, it still feels like this is Joe Nichols. It's got to feel good, right? I mean, decades.
Man, I remember when people used to interview me back when I first started out with Impossible and stuff. They were like, "Well, what do you see yourself in 5 years?" And my goal back then, as the same as it is now, I want to see myself doing this as long as I want to do it, not as long as I have to do it. Like I want to be able to make music as long as I continue to love it. And I said, if I had a 20-year career, that'd be pretty fantastic. That was 20 years ago, so I don't know if I'd be happy with that. But I think, looking back on it, this young guy would have been tickled to death if I'd have just had a good 5 or 10-year run. But right now, sitting back, being able to say we're still making records and I'm still loving it, and we're still able to play a little of the game that's a young man's kind of game. That's a little element that's kind of your little ego boost. I'm like, man, I'm not a new guy, but I'm still able to do some new guy stuff, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like I imagine like when you're in a van first starting out, bunch of guys washing your face in the bathroom sink, you like hit a certain age and you're like, I can't do this shit anymore.
Yeah.
But then you hit
There's
to
a
your
couple of
spot
things.
where you get the bus, and then you can travel around, pick the shows you want, play a couple casino gigs, maybe play a little blackjack in between, hit the golf course.
That's exactly my gig. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's kind of the ideal weekend, is just kind of play a casino, do a little blackjack. They got a sports book, throw some money on that and hit the golf course in the day. Boy, I tell you what, man, the amount of times I had to, take a leak right there off the side of the stage in a cup or something like that.
Is that a real thing?
Well,
we've asked questions about this with guests. Some of the most basic human functions when you're on stage for 2 hours, maybe longer, I don't know. Yeah. That's got to happen. Shania Twain, she talked about, she's like, she pissed herself on stage multiple times. She wrote an article about it. She talked about
I think Clinton
she said it on like Bravo After Dark or something. Yeah. One of those like, yeah. So it's like, whoa, Shania's saying it. Like the guys must, because the guys, I would think back then,
drinking a lot of beer.
Yeah. If you're like pounding beers when you're younger and like you're just doing it a little too much before you went on stage when you started out, you got to go.
Oh yeah. Man, I remember one very clearly. I remember a couple of them were very like close calls. Both of them were around 2003, maybe. I played at the Puyallup big fair they have up there in Seattle, outside Seattle, or in Seattle, and there were probably 12,000 people there, and I had to go. Man, it was like I can't do anything about this. We were doing an acoustic thing too. We were headlining an acoustic thing. Like I said, 10 or 12,000 people. So all eyes are on you. There's no band that can vamp, and go into like a 5-minute instrumental. So I had to just go right off stage. There was no bathroom. There's no dressing room, nothing. It was just find a cup. Somebody found a cup, filled her up, little spillage, and went back on stage, man. Just hope everything was,
right. Because your brain's got to be racing. Let me just like pretend like I'm throwing a water bottle to the crowd, but I'll pour it on myself. And then as I'm pouring it on myself, I'll start peeing myself. So
that's awesome.
Steve, you've thought about this before.
Yeah.
Well, think about it. Like, you got to black jeans. I'm going to wear black jeans only.
Yeah.
No light color jeans.
That's a great idea. No, man, that's one of those things where you gotta be prepped before you go on a stage, man. It can hit you quick, but yeah, I did that in Texas too, at a festival there. I literally walked off stage and I had my pants undone as the crowd could still see my back, and it was rough. But like I drank a lot back then, so like you said, if you don't take care of yourself beforehand, and you go on stage for 2+ hours, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
What's the pre-show routine like these days?
I do. I found that sleep can kind of act as a good calmer, whereas booze used to do that. Whiskey used to do that for me quite a lot, kind of calm my anxiety. But I sleep, I nap till really close to showtime. So I'm kind of in that little bit of a calm fog before I go on a stage. And that's kind of my routine. I do some vocal warm-ups for 20-30 minutes. I just do like old Keith Whitley, old Randy Travis, Merle songs, just for a good 20-30 minute warm-up, and then it's showtime.
Those are some of your idols, right? I had a note. Who are specifically your favorites of all time? I know you probably mentioned some right there, but
yeah, Merle, Keith, George Strait, George Jones, Randy Travis. Man, Randy Travis was such a big deal when I was a kid. And I love the guys that kind of don't get a lot of credit anymore, but like Ronnie Millsap, Don Williams, those guys were humongous to me. Hank Jr. was another one. Some of his albums, some brilliant music, not perfect, but brilliant. Boy, yeah, I'm kind of drawing a blank a little bit, but a lot of the baritone singers, guys like Keith, Merle, Randy Travis, George Strait, George Jones.
Who are some of the like your contemporaries right now that you think are really doing it right, like, or really promising, someone that you might be not necessarily looking up to, but you're like, oh wow, they're doing it right. I like what's coming. I think the future is bright for them. Who are some of those artists right now?
I sure like the way Luke sings. Luke Combs, he's sure a great singer, phenomenal singer actually. And I like Cody. We mentioned him before. Cody Johnson, love that guy. And I like this new guy, Dylan Carmichael. We've done a couple of shows with him, and he's got kind of a throwback kind of deal. I like him. Very super nice guy too.
Yeah.
That's just a couple of them. Yeah. I remember when before Chris Stapleton had a record out, he was writing songs. I actually met him way back at the Station Inn, like 2002 or 3 or 4. And I was like trying to get people's attention. I'm like, have you anybody checking this guy out? It's just him and a guitar up there on stage. He's like killing it. But the main band would take 20-minute break, and he'd get up there with a guitar and just slay it. I'm like, dang, he was a big guy. And I was just really super impressed. And I found out he was writing for EMI. I believe it was EMI. And I was like, man, if that guy ain't a superstar, there's no justice in the world. But at the time, country music was kind of infatuated with looks a lot more than they are now. And I was like, man, he's got an uphill battle, but boy, he's got more talent than anybody I know of. So glad to see him kind of, killing it. Some of those guys like that are just super, super good. They don't deserve to die in obscurity in Nashville like they used to.
Yeah, I mean, that's frustrating when you talk about, because when he blew up, and then you saw, speaking of Blake, like The Voice, and everybody's like, ooh, who's the next like burly bearded guy we can go find? It's like, no, like they got to be able to do the have the talent. So it's funny how that, I mean, I'm glad that's not a thing anymore. I got to ask you though, you weren't a St. Louis Cardinals hat. We're both Cubs fans. This is a serious.
Oh hell. Sorry.
We almost didn't do the podcast. We were like Cardinals fans.
How did that happen? Considering you're from, was it Arkansas? Where are you from originally?
Arkansas.
Yeah. And so
when I was a kid, I was born in Rogers, Arkansas. And when I was a kid in 1982, we moved to St. Louis. My dad had a job there as a security guard at Busch Stadium. And so, so we kind of got there in the middle of 1982, Ozzie Smith's coming out year, and kind of saw some really great years of the Cardinals, 82 to 87. We moved away in 87. And then, so I just kind of stuck, became a Cardinals fan. We moved back to Arkansas after that. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm trying to remember some of my first memories of really getting into baseball. I would have been 10 years old, was 98 with McGuire and Sosa, and let them in the Hall of Fame. Everybody's on steroids, like shit's.
I completely agree with that. Everybody's doing something, man. I love Roy Oswald's take on the spin rate, the substances on the baseball, and kind of, he was kind of over it. And I really appreciated his kind of candor with, dudes have been able to scuff balls and put stuff on balls for years. But, we're kind of living this moment now where people are trying to find ways for a substance to make it on your arm. And like what? That's a competitive advantage with a foreign substance. What do you call steroids? Back in the day, everybody's trying to do something. So I'm with you, man. Put them in the Hall of Fame.
The Barry Bonds stuff is the craziest to me. I just I get it. He was an asshole to a lot of people. Like a lot of people just didn't like him. But the guy, some of his stats from that year, just Wes and I think we were talking about it. My God,
I think if you take all his home runs in his career and you just call them outs, he still has a better on base percentage than David Ortiz, who just got into the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Or something like that. It's pretty close to that.
And David Ortiz tested positive, right?
Did he?
I thought he got something. And then maybe I'm wrong there. I thought the thing with Bonds where a lot of people were like, oh, it's because the whole Balco grand jury thing. And him involved in that, where they were like, this is too much. Roger Clemens was kind of in that boat.
Well, and at the end of the day, it's you can either hit a baseball or you can't. And taking steroids is not going to help you hit a baseball. It might help you hit it a little farther, but it doesn't help you connect. It doesn't give you, better contact.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This
doesn't help you read a pitch.
This Bleacher Report from 2003 says breaking news: David Ortiz tested positive for steroids. So I don't know when that was exactly. But
they had a World Series ring the next year, I believe.
Sorry, is baseball your kind of your favorite sport to watch? Or are you a big sports fan overall? You mentioned gambling,
I'm a big sports guy. Yeah, I'm not. I'm married, so I don't get too much of a leash on that kind of stuff without having to, make sure my wife knows about it at least.
What the gambling about?
Yeah, gambling on games and stuff.
Oh, I gamble. I don't tell her. And then I'm just walking around. I have a 1.5-year-old, and then I just go crazy. And then the dog goes crazy, and then the kid goes crazy. She's like, "What the hell's going on?" And I was like, "Michigan State covered." And I'm like, "I don't even care." Yeah. She's like, "What? Michigan State?" I'm like, It's
That's no, I think I'm a college football guy. I'm a baseball guy. I like a little bit of NFL, but college basketball, of course, is always crazy. I love college basketball.
Are you an Arkansas
but
guy?
No, I'm an Arkansas guy.
That was a crazy win, right? The other day.
Man, that's good of a win as I've seen them have in 20 plus years. A non-tournament win, I should say.
Wasn't the coach shirtless in the crowd?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, man. He goes crazy. I love it. He got some pep. He fires up the students. He kind of gets them going. I like that guy. He's got a lot of, like I said, he kind of gets a lot of enthusiasm for college coaches. I think that's extremely important.
Yeah.
Do you shoot a text to Justin Moore and be like, "Hey man, how about these Razorbacks right now?"
I did. I texted him and Bobby Bones. I'm like, dude, let's go. They just pulled that off, and both of them responded. I think Bobby was watching from the backstage of the Opry, and Justin was watching this. That was a good game, man. That was a good win.
Yeah, that was fun to watch. The speaking of Arkansas, and we talked about Nashville a little bit and radio, and you live in Texas now. At the beginning, you mentioned, or before even, did you move to Texas just to kind of get out of the Nashville area instead of Arkansas? You just wanted something different? Or we have a lot of Texas guys and we love Texas country. And you kind of start to feel this common thread between all of them, where they all get this yearning to go back to Texas. Every Texan I know loves Texas like crazy. And you not being from there originally, what kind of made you go, I want to, have my family here?
Well, I got married in 2007. My wife's from Longview, Texas. Okay. And right before we got married, she moved up there to Tennessee, and we stuck it out in Tennessee, in Nashville there for about a year. And she had enough. She's like, I can't take this town.
Don't blame her.
Yeah, she's like, I can't do it. She goes, I'm going back to Texas. Just let's go. If we're gonna start a family, let's go there. And so we decided to move. I wasn't crazy about Longview at the time, but Tyler seemed like it was close enough to Dallas. You can do a lot of, things in and out of Dallas without being, a few hours away. And so that's kind of been a great plan, man. It worked out incredibly well because I love it in East Texas. I love in Tyler, Texas. It's a beautiful place, kind of a little off the radar a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if I need to be in Nashville, it takes me about, 30-minute trip to Dallas and then another hour and a half flight to Nashville.
A lot of great artists come from East Texas too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a great place.
Miranda and Casey from right up the road. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's in Whiskey Myers. Yeah,
Whiskey Myers from here. Yeah.
Yeah.
JB and the Moonshine guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And Co Wetzel's from East Texas. A lot of East Texas boys out there.
That's right.
You gotta start working the Texas circuit. Start working.
Man, I had that conversation with somebody the other day.
It's a different world, right?
Yeah, it is a really different world. It's kind of more of a fraternity than, of course, the national touring, is. A guy like Cody can come into Houston Livestock Show and sell 70,000+ seats, and that's kind of like, wow. It's impressive that some of these guys that their reach may not go. I know Cody's a national guy now, but some of these Texas guys, you'd be shocked to see their following, their fan bases. But yeah, we've talked about that. I think I've got more Texas dates now. I used to be a really heavy into Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, a lot of stuff in the Midwest, lots of stuff in California, believe that or not. But Texas wasn't so heavy until I moved here. And now I work in Texas probably a quarter of the schedule, maybe.
Well, I love that because you seem like you would fit in perfectly, just like the way you sound. And we've always said that. You like took the words out of my mouth. Wes and I would always joke with artists. You got a guy like Cody Johnson can sell like out a stadium in Texas, but then a guy with a #1 radio single in Nashville can't sell out a 500 seat venue. That was kind of like the impetus when we kind of with Whiskey Riff really started like making a push to like be more vocal about these type of things. Cause it just like, as music fans, it like pisses you off, right? You're like, this is what this guy or this gal over here is doing it. Look what they're doing. And then the radio is kind of just propping this person up because of the label. They couldn't sell anything close to that. It's wild. Like the fandom is.
And Cody sold out NRG before he had a record deal.
Yeah,
had
to take a pay cut. Probably had to take a pay cut to go national.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of brings you back to the. Go ahead.
I remember I was label mates with Pat Green there for a little while.
Oh yeah.
And I remember when he came to town, it was he would have the same kind of vibe. He did really extremely well, broke records in Texas. All kinds of stuff. And there wasn't a place he couldn't put 20,000 seats. Butts in the seats here in Texas. And then he came to Nashville and he cut a very kind of Nashville sounding record at Wave on Wave, which did incredibly well at radio. Yeah. And I remember people being a little pissed back then that he kind of did that. Even the Texans I knew in Nashville were like mad that he came to Texas or came to Tennessee and recorded a Nashville record. But it's a weird deal, man. Like I said, it's more of a fraternity in that Texas old school kind of way. You gotta admire it. You gotta admire that people love the music, the outlaw country, the Texas country, the real country. And they don't
they put you in your place. We have a big Texas country playlist that we updated and we posted on Instagram today, but like we had Turnpike Troubadours on the cover, and then a lot of comments are like, well, they're from Oklahoma, Texas. This starts this whole thing about red dirt. Yeah. And it was just like, okay. So now we have these conversations when we have
Whiskey Myers is a rock band. It's like,
they get angry. Whiskey Myers is rock.
The umbrella of Texas kind of just covers multiple genres.
Oh yeah.
It kind of goes back though to the Chris Stapleton thing. Like this guy was a powerhouse and everybody in Nashville knew it. At least everybody connected should have known it and did know it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what took so long? Like he was writing songs for artists that cuts with not Dirk's. He did record a song with Dirk's, but Darius Rucker, Chesney, Tim McGraw,
McGraw, yeah.
And then it's like, what the hell took so long? It took a Justin Timberlake thing on the fucking CMA Awards for him to blow up.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, thank God he did.
Does that bother you? Seem like a really relaxed guy, but like, does that bother? Like, it bothers me. Like,
I get angry. I'm like hitting the table.
Man,
just like a sports fan vibe, you know, it's like, you're like, this guy's so underrated, this guy's and then they like make it, you're like so happy for them.
Give him the damn ball.
But you're like, if this coach would have just seen it in him before he change of scenery, Jake Arrieta going to the Cubs, speaking of baseball, like he sucked, went to the Cubs, he won a Cy Young, you know, it's like,
right.
It's that whole thing is just wild to me.
Yeah. You know, knowing the kind of the bar musicians in Nashville that are some of the best musicians in the country, some of the guys that are playing down on Broadway and used to be Second Avenue. Some of those singers down there, in my opinion, were always extremely good. I should say half of them were extremely good. When you're like, man, this guy deserves a deal and deserves to be a star for sure. This girl deserves to be a star. She's that freaking good. A lot of bluegrassers too.
Yeah.
But I saw those, and it's kind of like people, like you said, play it in the minors, you know, for a baseball team that just didn't have any room on their major league roster, but didn't want to bring them up to their team, but didn't want to trade them to a team that could use them. So they just kind of sat them in the minors forever until their time had kind of passed. And then all of a sudden they were kind of like, oh, well, they were buzzing around town 5 or 6 years ago and had a deal, and it never came to fruition. So they're probably not as good as you thought. But I've seen a lot of careers like that just never really get going because the label didn't have room, didn't have time, didn't want anybody else to really do anything with them because they'd look like an idiot. Seen a lot of that kind of stuff. So, you know, I get it.
Yeah. There's a number of artists too who like they'll put out an EP and then they'll put out a single, and then maybe another EP, another like big single, and then it's like they just don't quite get that traction to like. And it's been like 5, 6, 7, 8, sometimes like 9 years on a major label, but never really like had a big project, never had a full album. Or like they're few and far between. And it's kind of like, I suppose like it's kind of nice to be on the label and have that backing, but like you're also kind of maybe wasting time, maybe just trying to do something else. Like, I don't know. I guess there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, as they say, but you feel like you're sitting on the shelf.
Yeah, it got back to the branding thing. You know, I've seen artists do that and still trying to figure out who they are.
Yeah,
you know, put out a 4-song EP that doesn't really sound like the next 4-song EP. Trying to find that niche at radio, trying to find out what sells, what's their thing. But you're right, man. It seems like if you don't have the full support of a label that believes in you and what your vision is, not really that they don't have a vision, but they believe that you know what you're talking about and that you know what you're doing. If you don't have that, you can really search for a long time and have just some songs at the radio that may or may not have worked, but really don't know who you are and don't really have a brand because of that. Mm-hmm. And so that's, after all these years, I've learned that's the most important thing I've ever done is trust that process of the brand. Even though you're not having success at radio, the overall picture is probably a little better than you think. With like I said, putting out failures at radio like Billy Graham's Bible and some of the countryest stuff we've done, knowing that it won't work at radio, but it gives people a chance to hear who I really am, who I am, even a success or failure. So I've seen some of that too, where, like I said, I don't know if it's the artist or the label, but you got to have a vision and you got to have that awareness of your brand building, you know, otherwise you can kind of get stuck trying to chase what's hot at radio.
Absolutely.
And then when you're chasing, you're always a step behind, and it's like,
you're never going to be as good as the original, you know, an imitation is never as good as the original.
Absolutely. Yeah. 2 quick things before we let you go. One of my all-time favorite country songs, She Only Smokes When She Drinks. I was surprised to find out that it like peaked at like 17, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I'm like, how? Baffled. Right? Because that song is, I think we've tweeted about that in Broken Heartsville a few times, where we're just like, to this day, the song, as the kids say, slaps or whatever. And people react, like young people like that song. Like it comes up on maybe a Spotify radio playlist or whatever. what's your favorite song you've ever put out? Is that one of them, I assume?
I love Smokes. I love Broken Heartsville. Still to this day, when I sing it, it still holds
Those
up
two are just,
to me.
yeah.
Yeah. That's that first record. That whole first record felt great to me. Still feels good to me. When Heather will have it on in her car, sometimes I'll get in the car and she'll be just listening to album cuts on that record, and I'm like, I love you too, honey. That's awesome. Man, it's really hard to beat for me. I know it was never played at radio. We never put it out, but Man with the Memories, probably my favorite thing that I've ever cut. The title track on that album.
Yeah.
Just because I remember what it took to get it where it felt right. Had the song really well written, thought the track was really going to be cool, but man, it just took singing it over and over and over. And one night at about 2:00 in the morning, I think I came in the studio. Brent was doing some work. And I was like, I was kind of half drunk. I was like, man, let's give this thing another shot. Let's take 3 or 4 takes at it and see if it comes together. And we did that. We did that song, and it was just the right amount of lazy and the right amount of I don't give a shit. And it was just the perfect mix, and it sounded relaxed and it sounded natural. And so, like I said, for a lot of reasons, that's probably my favorite thing I've ever cut.
Nice.
Back in the day, is like recording an album the kind of thing where you like grab a few beers and like loosen up, or is it more like, hey, we're here to work, it's very buttoned up? I would imagine you'd probably have a few back in the day.
Yeah. I was anything but professional most of the time with my profession.
That's a great line.
Oh man, I think, well, first of all, I tried to not drink beer because it kind of creates this little bit of an allergic kind of nasally.
That happened to me earlier with an IPA. Like, I can't do that shit.
Yeah. So it kind of naturally kind of makes you a little less resonant.
One of each right now.
So early on, I would drink whiskey, man. If whiskey couldn't do it, then I'd probably chill out. But yeah, I think I was pretty, out of control in some ways, but I don't think I really necessarily live by a lot of rules as far as this is what I do when I'm on the clock. This is what I do when I was late for so many meetings that were very important. I was drunk in a lot of situations or tipsy in a lot of situations. I probably should have had my stuff together a little better than I did. But a lot of that comes with just being, really successful, really young with no rules, no limits. And all of a sudden I thought, I didn't have to play by any rules. And so I didn't there for a while.
Didn't Merle record Poncho and Lefty with Willie at like 5 a.m. and was like, woke up the next morning and he came back and was like, I got to do that vocal again. I don't really remember what the hell did we sing? And Willie was like, it's gone. We already cut. It's cut. It's on its way to New York. We're having a single tomorrow.
That's great, man. Some of those things, it just takes the right moment. I heard, a story like that. Jim Ed Norman told me a story about cutting the Urban Cowboy soundtrack. And he said he tried with Mickey Gilley to do Stand By Me. He said this kind of Louisiana singer, he kind of on the front end of everything, just kind of early on the lines. And he said it just felt like it was really kind of out of balance. It felt like it was faster than it should have been. And he said, I just wore him down, beat him like a horse until he finally just leaned up against the wall and was kind of staring at the top of his head like, darling, stand by me. Real kind of laid back. Stuff like that, Yeah, you never know, man. Doug Johnson's got some great stories about just whipping an artist until they have a heart attack and just make sure you get that last one before they're going to the hospital on tape. Make sure you got that record button hit.
I think the Kings of Leon, the lead singer Caleb, wrote a song in the booth. They never heard it. He just went in the booth, recorded it, wrote it in like completely blacked out. Woke up the next morning, was like, oh, you got to hear that song we cut. And he was like, oh, what song? And they're like, I forget what it's called. And he was like,
That's great.
and he goes, oh, I didn't finish writing that. And they were like, last night you did.
That's right. Hey, man, productive blackouts. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go here, new album coming out February 11th, Good Day for Living. For the fans, what's the rest of 2022 looking like? You gonna hit the road quite a bit, or?
Yeah, we got a pretty full year from March on. You know, we kind of laid it low a little bit first couple of months of this year. We'll probably do about 80 full band, mix in some radio stuff in there, and we got a really full year. This, you know, new music always kind of that cycle is always really kind of crazy.
You do some festivals?
I saw some on there. I haven't done a couple of the bigger ones in a couple of years. So like I said, it's part of that cycle that, you know, we got a song at radio now. It feels really good at radio. That's really good feedback so far, which I'm really, really, really thankful for. But probably a lot of those bigger festivals middle of next year.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Joe, awesome to finally meet you. Hopefully we can meet you in person sometime.
Y'all too,
soon.
man.
And
would
thank
love
you for your
that.
time, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. I enjoyed it myself, man. Thank y'all.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.